Welcome to Train Sim Heroes. We're back again. We've done the Riviera part of the line up to Plymouth, and we've now done an hour's worth of travelling, and an hour later we're back here on the line with our 802. It's finally caught up and got to St Austall. We're going to be carrying this on all the way to Penzance. Now, let's get some juice into this 802 after its stop here, and let's make our way to our next stop, which is Truro. So if you watched the last two videos, you would have noticed that we started this journey at Exeter St David's. If you was on this route in real life, going from Paddington to Penzance, when this service finished in our last video at Paddington, it would take an hour to get from there to St Austall. So we're continuing on with this route. And we're still kind of travelling along the, well, I say the English Riviera. I would say we're travelling along the Cornish Riviera now, but it is a part of the Riviera tour, so we're continuing the nice journey that we have ahead of us. Now, due to this being an almighty route that is very funny to set up a task, if you originally got this game in Train Sim 2, this route, you would notice that the gameplay is a little bit different to what it should be, and this route suffers horrendously in the game due to virtually no traffic en route. It has become so desolated and so unpopulated that people don't really play this route a lot, and it doesn't get a lot of credit, and it's because it's set in a time when there were still the Pacers, or the 150s. I think they used to call them Pacers of some sort. And the 150 in this game, if you play it directly as you should, it is horrendous. It is a terrible, terrible play indeed. It's slaggy, it doesn't do its job properly, and when they gave us the new 150, the GWR version, from the regional railways one that we've got on this, we saw a massive improvement in the physics and the way that the train actually handled. Now, sadly, if you play this route, because it's such an old route from Train Sim World 2, I believe, you're not really getting a very good route here, because you're not getting a lot of traffic, because it now goes down into what we call a single line for quite a bit of the proportion of the railway, and quite honestly there's not really that much happening on this route. So because of that, you are limited to what you can do, the playability. Even if you set up a scenario on this, there is a lot of playability that won't work. You can't have another train starting down the line and coming towards you. Your train will do red signals, it will get stuck places, and the chances are you'll end up doing, well, actually I'm going to show you what you'll end up doing. That's what you could end up doing. You could end up hitting another train. Is exactly what I did when I tested this before playing it. So I feel like with this route there was a lot missing that we didn't have, and obviously for Train Sim World 2 we all know that, you know, there was more to come, correct? But this route suffers dearly. Let's look at the graphics and the textures for a start. They look alright on paper while you're travelling, but there is a lot wrong with the terrain, the way that it's dealt with. We are in our infancy with this Train Sim release. Now you got to remember, this was only the second one that they had released, other than the Train Sim World Classic, which, of course, if you've seen that, this was a vast improvement at the time to what we had already had. So you can expect better, but I think it's because we've been so spoiled by what we've got now that we look back at a map like this and we actually kind of think, you know, we got a bit of a rough deal back in those days. And let me just show you some of these textures. They're not that bad. If you look at them, that's quite detailed. You know, look at that. That's not horrendous. Even the trees have got markings on. But this route is one of those routes that got so much stick when it was released, along with the Spirit of Steam, because it didn't really have much playability. And due to that, I think, you know what I think has opened up a lot of these games for a lot of people, and the playability, creating your own scenarios and stuff like that, is the portals at the end of the lines. Those portals help so many players now to try and achieve what they're doing and what they're actually playing with here. It actually helps them to actually build a better, build a better route, because in the day, portals was not a thing. You couldn't go through the portal by creating a scenario, so you couldn't have 10 to 1,000 trains running along your line going through portals and having a lot of traffic. No, you couldn't do that. It was a thing that really didn't exist. Not probably until we got, like, I think Train Sim World, 5? Maybe even 4, late 4? I don't know. But when you look back at that, that is half the problem, I think, with how playability on Train Sim World has become better over the years. Because it doesn't matter how many trains you put onto a route, they're going to go somewhere. They're going to go for a portal at the end of the line. People like that. People like having that kind of traffic just piling through. And a good example of that is probably the Medway line, because you can just whack so much traffic on that, it works well. But then you get something like the West Coast Main Line South, and there's no portals. And because there's no portals, you can't do nothing with it. You can't go anywhere. So you can only take it up to like Milton Keynes, and then you're going to get a backlog of trains because you haven't got any portal. Why there isn't a portal is beyond me. But then you get something like the Blackpool branches, and there is portal heaven everywhere. And the amount of traffic you can put on that route is just insane. Honestly, you can do so much with it. This route, the only trains I've got on this route, believe it or not, is a little train that's going from St Ives down into Penzance, and a later train that will be leaving Penzance to take the line. Now, you can't tell me, right? You can't tell me this, okay? Because I won't believe it. That if you was on this line today, that you're going to get this little traffic. I just can't. I can't get it. I can't get my head around it. I can't see that happening. Now, I'm assuming that there probably ain't a lot of trains that go to Penzance, right? But there's got to be enough to warrant more than one line. Maybe, I reckon they've probably got 2 lines here now. I don't know. It does seem very strange. But then this route was set in the 80s. I believe it was the 80s, or maybe even the mid-90s. I don't know. But it's not a modern day route. And I think, as we've discovered with a lot of these routes, a lot of the older routes, especially the routes that are set in the past, and especially the early ones, have suffered big time in the past. They have suffered hugely because of things like this, and yeah, I think we've all can appreciate that sometimes these routes do suffer because of the age that they are. Now, when you get a route now that is set in the past, such as the Blackpool branches or the Preston line or whatever, it's not such a big deal, because you know what you're going to get, because they've made it so it can be fun. The train physics have got better, the routes have got better, you've got portals, you can do more with it, there's passengers. What a lot of routes from the early days suffer from, especially if they're older routes, is passengers and playability. And I know I think on every train sim route there is always going to be something that isn't good, but there's always good things that you can look out for. So on this route, the good things is that it's an early example of how a route that is quite long can be achieved. And at the time it came out, people were liking it. But the problem with this route was, it wasn't liked enough. After a while, people got a bit bored with this. So you can see where I'm going with this. This argument that I'm going with is that You've got to appreciate that this was an old route, but at the same point, we can appreciate that we've come a long way since Train Sim World 2, and we've got, you know, and I think we're all happier now, even though there are still numerous problems with a lot of the train sims routes when they first come out. You gotta appreciate that whilst that is a thing, we are still spoiled by what we've got. You know, we've gone above and beyond. But it doesn't mean that these routes shouldn't be played. It doesn't mean these routes can't be enjoyed still. It just means that, you know, you're not going to have as much fun on this as you would, say, I don't know, on the Milton Keynes to Crewe route, or on the Preston to Carlisle route, or maybe even the Medway line, or the South Eastern line. You know, this route suffers. And it's one of those routes that could be worked on to make it better. But look, let's not dwell on things like that. Let's continue our journey to Truro, because we are on what we call the Cornish Riviera now. And we're going to still call it the Riviera, because technically it is. It's still down south. It's still connecting us to our route. It's part of the same Great Western Route. So let's enjoy it for what it really is. We're not quite near the sea. I think we're a bit more inland at the moment with this, but we'll see when we get outside. When we get to Truro, we might be able to see if we've got some life beyond the city, or the town, shall I say. So we're not stopping at every station. We're just stopping at a few stations along the route. But we are... Now, the thing I would say about this route, or this part of the route, is it's quite slow. You do sort of speeds of about 65. Occasionally you will go up to 70, but you can tell why, because it is such a windy route. You can see that. It's windy as hell. And I think that is half the issue, that if you took the train... Well, actually, to be honest, when I done my test route on this, I was actually throttling out over 100, and it was holding on to the line quite well. It was a bit jittery, it was a bit, you know, it weren't liking it, but it stayed on the line, and I think it would have got me to Penzance had a cross-country not been in the way and turfed me off the line. But, as a test, it flew along these curves and stuff like that. Yeah, I think the train... I think it was quite funny, really. I was surprised how much it held on. It was quite a surprise, even for me. Anyway, we've got about 1.5 miles to Truro. Our route will take us to Redruth as well when we get there. And then from Redruth we will go to St Erth and then Penzance. So we've got a few stops along the way, but not many. But we are trying to make the most of this just to give you the idea of the Cornish Riviera. Even though there's not a drop of water in sight, from what I can see. I don't even know what direction it's in at the moment. But we are coming to Truro, so we're gonna, as we're going downhill, we're gonna literally take some of this power off. Just come in quite calmly, I think. Now I don't see any sea at the moment. Hoping that we're going to go across some sea now, but looking over there, I can't see. I think we're inland. I think that's why. I think Truro. We've got a nice cathedral over there. But you can see the buildings are very blocky and very, you know, I think that is something that's improved over the years. It's very blocky, as you can see. The roads have been, you know, it's not built, it's not a clever build. It's a bit bulky, you know, when you look across that skyline. It's not aesthetically pleasing like some of the routes. I think that's where you can see the real examples of how this route isn't kind of up to scratch. But look, we're at Truro anyway. We'll have a little look around Truro. I'm not quite sure what we're going to see here and how nice it's going to be. But if you notice, there's not a single soul on the platform. Not a single soul. Oh, I lied. There are some up here. Now, they are facing the other way, a lot of them. Are any of these going to get on the train, do you think? Are we going to get the classic 80s syndrome that we all love on this game? Where no one gets on the route. Let's have a look. We've got people coming off, that's good. So normally the passengers will get on after the passengers have exited. That's a lot of passengers getting off. Let's see if any of these get on. I think we're clearing out the whole train here. Jeez. That is a lot. Well, there's so many getting off, I don't think any passengers want to get on. I mean, this is crazy. Look how many passengers have just got off that train. Look. Look at this. And we've still got a lot of passengers on there, as you can see through the windows. But, oh no, passengers are getting on. Well, there you go. So it's not as bad as some of the 80s developments. Now, outside the platform here, basic standard building. Platform's not too bad. Very average, but we have got the GWR benches. But the older style kind of logo there. Interesting. Right. Let's move on to Redruth. And yeah, okay, so that's quite impressive. For an early game, that's not too bad. We have got some action. We got passengers actually wanting to get on our trains, which I was thinking from it then, we're not going to get anything. But there's still quite a lot of passengers on it. So it's a popular route in that respect. Just lack of trains, just lack of travel. It would have been good to have a train here coming through, but I set a train back at Penzance. As soon as it leaves Penzance station, oh no, you get a red signal more or less as soon as you leave St Austall, so you can't plan ahead. It's almost like it's giving priority away to that train rather than my train, which to be honest it should be giving access or more priority to my train than their train. It's a very dazed route, this. A very dazed route. And I think that does hinder a lot of the gameplay. Anyway, we're on. We're on our route. We're carrying on now to Redruth, and then on to St Erth, and then we make our way off to Penzance. And hopefully, when we arrive at Penzance, there should be another 802 there, and it might even pull out. It might not. I don't know. Well, I mean, we are doing quite well for time, but the whole route here should last from St Austall for about an hour. But we're not stopping at every station, so we've got to allow for a little bit here. It's quite a long route. When you think about it, it is a long route. And, you know, what did we have in Train Sim World 2? Oh, we had the Brighton line, didn't we? Do you remember the Brighton line came out in Train Sim 2? Now that was a very impressive route. That was a really good route. There was no issues with that whatsoever. People liked it. It was fun, you know, and you could do a lot with it. There was a lot of traffic. I mean, I played on that, and I've even whacked random trains just sitting there, just for pure laughs. It can happen. But generally, in a nutshell, yeah, you can do a lot with it. Now, when you come to doing, say, the Bakerloo line, which came out in Train Sim World 2, the playability in that was a bit limited as well. I don't know if you've noticed that, but you can't, there's not much to do on that line. I mean, that only really came alive, I think, when you got the West Coast Main Line south, when you was able to play a little bit of the Bakerloo line on the overground section to, I think, Watford. But until that point, you didn't really have anything. It was a bit disappointing. So I think, you know, when you look back, I think they excelled themselves with the Brighton route in comparison to this in the Bakerloo line. So we're about 4 miles from Redruth, yeah. And when we get there, it will still be quite desolate. As you notice, there's no traffic. We can't create the traffic on this route as well, which is a shame because my original route that I had lined up for this was that we were going to have a nice cross-country passing us. We were going to have a little 150 going past and stuff like that. And then when we finally got to Penzance, you was going to see a 802 pull out as we were going in. It was all lined up, it was all nice, but even though the cross country was miles and miles back, like I think it would have been around, yeah, I think it's not even Howard, it gave priority to that drain rather than us, which is crazy when you look at it, because it shouldn't have done that. I even broke some rules. Yes, I did break some rules. I even went for a red signal just to try and see what would happen. And you've seen earlier on in this video what happened. But yeah, so it's a shame, and that just shows you what you can and can't do with this route. There is so much you can and can't do with it. Yeah, it's not good. It's not fun. It's not a fun route at all by long and short. But we're doing it because we're doing it for completion on the Riviera line. So we started off, if you haven't seen the videos, we started off on class 66, where we took 19 empty aggregate wagons all the way from Exeter St David's, all the way down to Newton Abbot. We left it there, it got put into a siding, and we then decided to pick up this 802, which took it down to Plymouth, so which was part 2 of the journey. So if you haven't seen those videos, go back a couple and you can get to experience this route in its entirety. So that's why we're doing this last part, because it kind of completes everything, really, just finishes everything off. And with me, I'm trying over the videos to try and jump from network to network to try and make a connection amongst a lot of videos, because generally you can. And coming soon, we are going to be doing one of the almightiest routes we've ever done. I'm not going to give too much away yet, but it's going to be one of the longest journeys we've ever done, and it's going to go across probably about 4 or 5 videos. So keep a lookout for that. That's going to come very, very soon. But in the meantime, we're only just under a mile and a half, or just over a mile and a half, to Redruth, and that's our next station before we get any further down the line. So we've got a little construction site over here, you can see. So that, look, the graphics is there, but things are just a bit clunky. I think it's not to the desired limit. There's a lot of working crossings, and there is road traffic, it's all there. But there's just something about this route that just makes it one of those routes that you wouldn't play a lot. It seems a world away when I last did the last video, and I don't know, we had so much going on, but you know, it's that is what like 4 editions of Train Sim World will do. You will notice the differences. Right, we've got authority coming up as we come into Redruth, so we are going to apply a little bit of that brake. So we are going downhill a little bit, so we want to get a little bit slower if we can. I don't know how accurate this line even is now compared to what it looks like in real life, because I've never actually been here, but I'm sure if you know, you can obviously drop some comments and let me know what you think. Right, this is Redruth, everyone. We're just coming into our next station. Should we do some tones? I know you'll like that. Now this is a very desolate station. You can see there's not much to see on this station. But if you look, there's a few passengers. I wonder how many is going to get off this time. It's not a bad station when you come to look at it. It's what you class as a good station and bad station. You know, not a lot of amenities, but we are going to stop here. Right, what we're going to do quickly before we open those doors, let's get out onto the platform and let's go a little bit down. Let's see if anyone gets out of these this time. Let's see if any passengers decide to descend out of these doors. Last time, a load of them poured out. Oh, no, this time we're actually just getting passengers going on. No one's actually getting off. That's a good sign. I hope there's enough seats. Oh, there's a load up this end. Strangely enough, since the last station, a lot of our passengers have disappeared. When we left that last station, these seats were all full. Interesting. Okay. Ice cream, anyone? Made by Rivet Games, this one. So maybe that could be why we're experiencing so many issues. Let's lock these doors and let's get on to our next station, which will be, of course, the wonderful St. Erth. Where I will show you a little side route to the wonderful St. Ives. And we're off now to St. Erth. 11 miles to Kundra here. Hopefully we'll be able to pick up some good speeds. And we got like a little caravan site here. Look, with the old washing outside, and looks pretty good. Mind you, that does look like it's a cutout though, doesn't it? There's no textures there at all. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Little things like that you notice. Let's have a look at these houses here, see if we can get a look at these. Yeah, they don't look too bad. Yet again, we got some washing, but yet again, if you look at it, they do look like cutouts. They don't look very. And we've got a football goal here that looks too big for the garden, and a vehicle which has got a number plate, but if you look at it, WSR. Now, WSR, West Somerset Railway, it's obvious where they've used that car from. So it's like reuse, recut, repaste, put it into another game. So there's another clue of what they were trying to do with the expectations of kind of using the same game base to try and create as many routes as possible. And that's not common for even for routes now. You do see a lot of stuff pop up. If you're on the Medway line, you can actually see the same church appear in several towns throughout the whole route. So it is a thing of reusing your database, but realistically, from another route to another route, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you use, at the end of the day, you use the same assets, right? I don't know if anyone remembers the trains, it's called, and you can actually build your own route on that, and you have like an asset database, and then you can build up your route and stuff like from the assets within the game. Yet again, you would end up probably using most of the same things several times over. We've seen this bridge a few times now, you see, so you've got to use what the resources you've got. But I think now we've got to the point now where they're actually using stuff and making it like it should actually really be. So they're actually building things. See, the same bridge yet again being reused, and then ahead of us the same bridge again. So all they've done is done a copy and paste job, as where now they are actually making things look like they should look like, and not just copying and pasting everywhere. So I suppose that's the difference. Here's a little interesting thing, this little ruin, and if you go inside, you actually have got, I think there was something out here. I don't know. I think there was something out here. I think there was like one of those collectibles out there. And I remember you had to stop halfway in the line to find it. I'm not quite sure what it was, but you know, you've got little things like that. We've got a signal box here. Let's have a little glimpse at this signal box. See what this is like. So it has got writing on it, which is good. That's not a bad signal box. So I'm just going through a station here. This must be, I don't know what this one is, Camborne? Is this Camborne? Let's see if I can find the, was it Hull? Oh, it is Camborne, there it is, Camborne. There we go. We're not stopping there. So we've got what's this? Oh, I thought it was just something. I thought something was coming up that I was going to show you. It doesn't come quite just yet. Really hard to maintain speed on this one as well, because you're going downhill constantly. We're on a 60 now. A minute ago we were doing a 70 now. We've got a nice straight, and we're doing a boring old 60. Don't get it at all. Let's just see how this is built. So we've got like a raised platform there, haven't we? Yeah, I guess so. So yet again the same bridge appears again in front of us. Seeing that quite a lot throughout this route. So I think this is another disused platform. I'm not quite sure what station it would have been, but yet again, you do see this on some of the routes. And I'm sure that if you do your history and stuff, you'll know, find out exactly what that is. But anyway, we're picking up a little bit of speed now because we're on a bit of a high speed limit. we've got about 4 miles till we get to St Erth. So as you can see, there's a lot of countryside in this route. There's a lot to see. It's a lot of countryside, very open, and generally it's one of those routes that you kind of, there's not much to see. It's one of those routes, you know, you can't really push yourself off the boundaries as well. Like some routes you can go a bit of a distance and explore. This one hasn't really got a very big aspect to explore with. So if I show you what I mean, like here we go, like we can go over to here, but that's as far as we can go. So there's like a sensible cut-off point, you see, which I think is a little bit of a downside to it, because obviously a lot of routes do give you a bit of room to explore, but you know, you'd want to go and have a little look. So we've got like a nice little village here. So I'll show you this. You can't get over this rail bridge. You can't see the train on the rail bridge. So you're kind of restricted to where you can go as well. It's a very closed-in route. Very closed-in route. There's not much space for anything to do anything fun with this. It's almost like they're trying to curb you from, you know, doing too much. And I think that's because obviously it is one of the early games. And I think, you know, there was a lot of difference as opposed to, you know, other routes kind of thing, you know, that we've had in the past. Right, so as we come into St Erth, which is just coming up, I think this is it. We're about 2 miles out. We've got a nice built-up area, but I'm not quite sure if we can. See, we can get quite well to a reasonable distance. But you can see, look, these streets are not built properly. You know what I mean? It's not like they're built out. They're not built that great. They're a little bit. You know, you would expect something a little bit more amenitive. Now, I might be being picky here, but there is a lot of bad things about this route that isn't. See, here comes that bridge again, the famous bridge. So this ain't St Erth, but I think this might be. What station is this? Let's have a look. It's Hull. Yeah, there's Hull. Them two stations are very close together, just a mile apart. Just crazy. Station's just around this corner, I think. I say around the corner, it should be around the bend, really, shouldn't it? Right, let's slow this baby down. Too fast, because we want to sort of, you know, we want to try and keep within our boundaries. I'm not sure how small this station is either. I think this isn't exactly a massive station, so we're not going to be too presumptuous of how much we can give ourselves. We've got some sidings up there, which I don't even think you can get into, maybe in 3-row. Another signal box there, and here we are at St Erth. Now this station is quite significant in the route because you do have the route that takes you a little bit beyond the map. So the first interesting station is here. And I will show you a little what I mean by that. Let's just get this to a stop. So over here, on this platform here, as you come down here, you've got another platform here. Now, this is your St Ives route. There it is. So this is just an Erth route that you can take, and you can, in the game, you can actually do this as a branch line. Now, the branch line itself, it isn't much fun really. It's very hilly, and it doesn't really give you much kind of it doesn't really give you much to do, because a lot of it's uphill. You know, it's a bit of a boring branch line really. There's not really much you can do, and it's it's very limited to certain speeds as well, and you know, you can't really have much fun on the branch line really there. It's not an exciting branch line. But look, we're off to Penzance. We've got 5 miles to complete this route, and we've done quite well really, because I think we've beat the record time, because I think the average journey from Penzance, from St Austall to Penzance, is around about just under an hour. So we've kind of, even though we've not stopped at every station, we've kind of done pretty well for time. So not bad really when you think about it. So yeah, we're gonna pull in a second, and when we get to Penzance, we will end this service. And we've literally gone from, well, all the way from Exeter to, I think, to where we are here, Penzance. So we've actually, the whole route is 112 miles roughly. So it's a long route. However, we didn't do half of that. So you know, we've only done pretty much. Well, we've done one part of it really, I think, so we've been quite, you know. So yeah, so we've done about, I think we've done about just over 100 odd miles to do this journey, which is not that bad really. Remember, we started off in a Class 66, so our speeds weren't as grand as they were. So we sort of deviate a little bit off the beaten track to get that train into the game. See, so we've had a bit of an excitement, but yeah, this part of the route has been a little bit lackluster, unfortunately, due to that there's no traffic, nothing really much to see. It's a sad end, really, to such a long route that possibly could have been really good, you know, and it's a shame that this part of the route lets us down, and not allowing us to sort of play with the game a little bit, and you know, have some excitement, you know, traffic and stuff. But even if you play this with the 150, there is very little traffic, and it is a shame. And I think the best part of this game is still to come, because as we get closer to Penzance, it opens up a little bit. You start to see the sea, you know, you see a little bit more, and yeah, it is a bit different, and it is quite nice. But generally, this last leg has been, I would say, pretty much a struggle, to say the least. But look, we've completed it, we've got there, and we've had fun doing it. So it's not been all bad, and it has to be completed. It's another one to tick off the list of all the routes that I'm trying to slowly get through. And yeah, this was the one that I was putting on the back burner for a bit, but it is up there with the Spirit of Steam and the Transpennine route, and the Tees Valley, which are all on the bottom of the list before we do anything else. So yeah. So we are just coming out now into seeing the sea, which is just coming to fashion, just beyond here. There we go. So if you look out here, now I'm not sure if it's going to allow us to do much, but we've got a little island out over here. Now I'm not sure if you can get out to that, but as you can see, we've got something, and even then the sea was a bit ripply thing, so it was starting to happen. But we are coming to Penzance, and as we get closer, you will see the sea, and things will start to open up. But yet again, you know, probably the most interesting part of the actual route that I actually quite like. I think this is probably the best bit. But it is what it is, you know. So as we come into Penzance, our route is over. We've got here at long, long last. It's taken a while, but if you imagine, if you got on this train from Paddington, it's an awful long route. There's a few boats out on the river there, which is quite nice. There are things to see. I think even so, if you come down here, yeah, look, you've even got like some lilos, some towels, but an empty beach with no people on really says it all. Really, you know, lacks that effect. I mean, there should be a couple of people on this beach. Really, you got all these things out. People just leave things like this on the beach. I fear not. I feel like it's yet again something that we've missed. But as we come in to this station, we have got another 802 that will be departing in around about 10 minutes, which will be going all the way back to St Austall. So that's there, as you can see. So it's nice to see another train on the route, but that's about the best we can do, leaving it stationary here in the line. But there you go. That's the craziness, really. But here we are. We've made it. And as we come into Penzance station, it's not a bad station. I mean, it's simple, but it's effective. But we've made it nevertheless. And there we go. So if we travel out of here around this bend, we've got the front of the station, which I'm not sure how far you can actually get to it, but it's pretty. You see here that you come around the station, there's one entrance, and there's no signage outside the station, really. There's no sign saying this is Penzance, no British Rail sign. I mean, you wouldn't know this is actually a station until you walk out onto the platform. It's a bit desolate, as I said, and we've got these cars here, but you know, how many? See, that number plate there is the same as the one next to it, so you can see already there's a mistake. LMC 1985, LMC 198. Yeah, so there you go. All the number plates are replicated a little bit, and you can see what number plating they're going for. But as you go across it, they're all the same, just on different cars. And I feel that is quite a disappointment for this route. Thanks very much for joining me. That's been Train Sim Heroes. Keep liking, subscribing, and sharing. It's been a hard day's night getting to this part of the route, but thanks very much for joining me. We'll be back again very, very soon with some more exciting routes. Until then, goodbye.